As we learned in the previous videos, a primary source in psychology is one that provides direct evidence or data to answer a research question, such as an original research article. A secondary source is one that summarizes, analyzes, synthesizes, or draws conclusions about primary research. These sources include reviews, meta-analyses, commentaries, and editorials. Let's start with reviews and meta-analyses. Systematic reviews look at all the studies conducted on a specific research topic, synthesize them, analyze them, and draw conclusions based on the evidence. It's one thing if you have a single study showing a correlation. It's another if you have 50 studies across several populations that all show the same results. A review will determine whether the conclusion of a study was a single case or whether it has been repeated enough to show a generalizable pattern. More often, the results are mixed, and reviews help us make sense of these results and suggest further research opportunities. Meta-analyses are often part of systematic reviews, but they may also stand on their own. These analyses take the raw data from many studies and combine them to create a single larger dataset to analyze. While meta-analyses involve statistical analysis similar to original research, they are generally classified as secondary sources because they analyze existing data rather than generate new data. However, because they create new statistical insights, some researchers consider meta-analyses to occupy a middle ground between primary and secondary sources. Here is a review and meta-analysis titled, "A Meta-Analytic Review of Emotion Regulation-Focused Psychosocial Interventions for Adolescents." This review looked at 41 original research studies that made interventions with the hope of improving adolescents' emotion regulation. One of those studies is the research article on using CBT for anxious youth that we looked at in the primary sources video. Other similar reviews had been done in the past, but the authors note that these reviews did not consider interventions across different presenting disorders or program types, such as clinical versus community programs. If you were a policymaker, counselor, teacher, or community program organizer, choosing an intervention with the largest impact on the most people becomes incredibly important. With this gap in mind, the authors completed their own statistical analysis of the interventions and their effects on adolescents, including a range of presenting disorders and programs. Reviews and meta-analyses look very similar to original research studies but have key differences. Let's take a closer look. Notice how this review is published in a peer-reviewed journal just like a research study. It has the same references, conclusion, discussion, results, methods, and introduction headings as a research study as well. To differentiate them, look for the words review, meta-analysis, or something similar in the title. Also, look at the methods section. Reviews and meta-analyses will outline how they conducted the literature search for the research studies, instead of listing the participants and measures. These methods will include the keywords and databases used, along with the criteria for inclusion and exclusion of the studies. This review required that all studies be for participants aged 10 to 19, based on the World Health Organization's definition of adolescence, and that all studies have utilized measures before and after the intervention. You can use reviews to help you get the big picture of a research topic, what has and hasn't been studied, and the limitations of the current research. They can help you narrow your research topic or identify a gap in the research to use as the basis of a new research question. The references listed can also help you identify primary research studies to explore in more depth. For example, the authors of this review found that the largest improvement effects came from clinical studies with patients diagnosed with disorders, while community studies of healthy individuals had less significant improvements. The question remains whether these greater effects were because community youth had less room for improvement compared to those with clinical diagnoses, or because of some other aspect of the study, such as the frequency or duration of the intervention. This is a gap in our knowledge on emotion regulation in youth, and a future study or review could be based on closing this gap. It is important to note that reviews and meta-analyses look backwards in the scholarly conversation at what has already been said. They take significant time to compile and analyze, which means they aren't the newest contributions. This review was initially done in 2020 and wasn't published until a year later. Be sure to search for original research studies conducted since the initial literature review to ensure you're up to date on the current scholarly conversation. Someone may have closed the research gap mentioned in the article since its publication. And keep an eye out for new research being published as you conduct your own. You can always incorporate it as you work on your project. Other types of secondary sources are commentaries and editorials. Commentaries are opinions providing critique of a research study or meta-analysis. They may point out gaps in the research, potential issues or blind spots with the methodology, or disagreements with the conclusions drawn by authors from the results. They may also be a call to action or further study. Editorials are similar, but they give perspectives on a topic or issue in the field, rather than on a specific study. Commentaries and editorials are usually shorter than research or review articles, and rarely have the standard headings of their peer-reviewed counterparts. They are typically written by researchers, policymakers, or other credentialed people in the field. Study authors may reply to these comments in the journal as well. While the opinion articles and their replies are often found in peer-reviewed journals, they do not go through the peer review process. Look for the words editorial or commentary in the title or somewhere else on the page to help you distinguish these sources from peer-reviewed studies. All the sources we've looked at so far in this video series have a primary audience of researchers. Their specialized terminology and methods are difficult for non-researchers and students to understand. Part of your role as a student is to look up and become familiar with these terms. That's where psychology's third source type comes in, tertiary. In our next video, we'll explore how tertiary sources can help you understand the terminology found in primary and secondary sources in psychology.